idiot tested. I went over it several times. I got to the court early, stood up there when there was hardly anybody there and made sure it was working. And came my time to argue. I was second, I think, that day. This was about 10 years ago. And I couldn't get it to work. Something happened. And the Chief Justice, Richard Howe, wore his glasses like this, and just there tapping his pen like this for 30 painful seconds until I finally got it to work. But I decided, you know what? It's not worth the pain to do a PowerPoint like that. So no more.
Is that common?
You know, it's
Now, I guess.
back in the day when PowerPoint was kind of new and neat, but now it's kind of overused, I think. So, tell me when you're ready, Joseph.
I am ready to go.
Ready to go? Okay. Well, welcome. My name is Robert Sykes. Many of you have been here before. Let me tell you about the facts of the case of Cody Greenland versus Officer Cannon and several other officers in the American Fork Police Department. The day was April 17, 2020. Police were called because apparently someone was trying to get into cars. Now, we don't think that was Cody, but here are the facts. He had been kicked out of his apartment that morning, had all of his belongings, duffel bags, etc., and called his girlfriend and said, I'm shopping at Target. Just come and drop your stuff off. And so he did that, found her car, but it was locked. He couldn't get in. He tried to see if he could get in, but he couldn't get in. So he left the stuff there by the car. Okay? The police cornered him, and I'll show you a video here in a minute which shows that. 3 officers cornered him. And what you'll see in these videos is that he was cooperative, he was unarmed, had no weapons. They ordered him to kneel down. He knelt down and put his hands in the air. Okay. There were no aggressive statements or actions, no attempt to escape, no threats, no cussing. And the 3 other officers were talking to him. And they have what we call reasonable suspicion. That's the lowest level of right to stop and talk to a person. And he had reasonable suspicion. But he's talking to him. Officer Cannon arrives maybe 30 seconds after the other officers, parks his car, and you'll see it here on the video in a minute, and runs full tilt, probably 40 feet, and tackles Cody from behind while he's kneeling down and drive his face into the cement, into the pavement. Okay? And Cody is then beaten severely by Cannon, punched. Other officers tase him. Okay? And you'll you'll see in a minute, in the complaint, we talk about tasing. And it is paragraph, let's see if I can find that. You can't tase a non-violent misdemeanor. And the courts have all said that, and they've been very clear about it. You can't tase a non-violent misdemeanor. And he was at most a non-violent. It's paragraph 113, I believe. A police officer violates the Fourth Amendment if he uses this is a quote from the 10th Circuit, taser against a non-violent misdemeanor who appeared to pose no threat and who was given no warning or chance to comply with officers' demands. And that's a direct quote. So, and he was tased multiple times. Tasing is very painful. It's 50,000 volts going through your system. It disables you, but it's very painful. So we have alleged an unlawful seizure without probable cause. They had no probable cause to seize and arrest Cody Green. He had done nothing wrong. They had suspicion, reasonable suspicion to talk to him, but not to arrest him, not to take him into custody. Excessive force. You judge, the U.S. Supreme Court for the last 30 years or so has set the standard for the use of force, okay? The basic rule of thumb is you can't use force at all if no force is necessary, okay? But there are three standards. You look at the severity of the crime, okay? And you look, and in this case, even if Cody was prowling cars, which he wasn't, that's considered a minor offense. You don't go and beat someone severely for it. Secondly, you look at the immediate threat to officers or to others. Like a person waving a firearm would be an immediate threat. No immediate threat here. Okay? And thirdly, you look at, is the person resisting arrest or evading? Okay? And you don't have that. He's on, as you'll see here in a minute, he's on his knees, hands up. And you can't taser a non-violent misdemeanor. Next, we are alleging failure to intervene. Now, you'll notice, and you've seen this in the national press, the other officers who were part of the George Floyd event are on trial right now for civil rights violations for failure to intervene. Okay, and officers have an obligation to intervene to prevent other officers from violating civil rights. And these other three officers did not. In fact, they participated. You'll see in one of the videos, if you watch it, one of the other officers says to another officer, "Was that intentional?" And you have also outrageous, conscious, shocking conduct, which is a 14th Amendment civil rights violation. I think that's either the third or fourth cause of action. And so Cody was injured, and if you look at paragraph 86 in the complaint, you'll notice that I set forth some of the injuries there. Okay, he had a significant concussion. He's had ringing in the ears that hasn't stopped for 2 years. That's irritating for him. He had several broken fingers and knuckles, and significant PTSD. It's a shame when someone has to be afraid of police officers, and he's afraid of police officers. I'll have him explain that in just a moment himself. But in summary, you have here a person who's compliant with police, and he's attacked and severely beaten and pummeled by officers, okay, tased. This was an outrageous violation of his civil rights, okay? Now, I'm glad he wasn't shot. I'm glad he doesn't have, a broken neck and quadriplegic. We have many clients who have far more serious injuries. But when we saw this case, my associate, Christina Isom, who's over here, the good-looking lady here, and I were outraged at what we saw. It was a significant and very serious violation of his constitutional rights. That's why we took this case, okay? It cries out to be vindicated in court. What these officers did was outrageous. Now, before I go any further and introduce Cody, I want to show you some videos. And so you all have these. Dan, good to see you.
Good to see you, Bob. Thanks.
I haven't talked to you for ages.
Yeah, it's been a little while. Thanks.
Let me show you some of these. Now, the first one is a parking lot video. It's a little hard to see, but I'm going to explain it to you as we go with my cursor, okay?
Are you okay with us sending these out now? Just
Oh, yeah. 10:30 was the
Okay.
embargo.
I just want to make sure.
It's, the embargo was lifted before you got here, Joseph. I want you to know.
You're not wrong.
How we doing with
I
sound?
could have tweeted out this
Okay.
in the parking lot.
Yeah, this just got turned around.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Dan, do you have a copy of the complaint?
Yes, I do. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
Appreciate that.
Now, I want to ask you, people in the press, if you can tell me how that big stone got up there. Let me know. Would you? If you figured that out, call me.
One day we'll all get together and you'll tell us.
Figure it out, huh?
right?
Okay, here we go.
Can we turn off that lamp?
Which one?
That one right there. Yeah. Thank you.
Is it humming?
You want me
Oh, no,
to,
I'm just
here,
Oh.
just a minute. I don't remember.
Sorry.
Would it bother you if I turn these lights off? Does that
Actually,
bother?
Oh, that's
Probably
all
help
good.
us,
Thank you.
yeah.
Is that better? Okay. I got tired of walking around every day and turning on 8 lights, so I noticed. Okay. Now, you will notice here,
Right there.
again, I told you that somebody, oops, what happened? Called about someone trying to get in cars. Let's see what we got here. Okay, and police cars arrived. There's one arriving, another one arriving. This is Cody, I think, right here. And if it went up further, you'd see more. And I'm going to play this. It's about 16 seconds, and you'll see the tackle. Okay? No sound on this. Is it going?
No.
Excuse me, folks. Three of the most beautiful grandchildren you've ever seen. Just so you know. Okay. Okay, here are the police cars coming. You see one up here, there's Cody, I think. See him. Another one coming back there. You don't see that very well. Okay, now Cannon's going to come from, see there's 3 officers there. Cannon's going to come from this direction. Cody is facing this direction, and Cannon hits him from behind. There you go. Right there. Now, here is the more that's Cannon running. And attack.
Shut the fuck up! Shut the fuck up! I'm good! I'm good! I'm good! I'm good! What do you do? I'm good! Hey! Hey! Give me your hand now! Stop it, dude! Stop! Stop! My hand up! I'm good! Stop! 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 Ah!
That sound is tasing.
Okay, 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 I'm good. Hey, stop, please. Hey, stop, please. Stop, come here. Come here.
Repeatedly begging them to stop.
Stop, stop. I promise. Stop. You're fucking me up, dude. I know, I will. Don't touch me no more, dude. Stop, dude. Bring your hand behind you. I will. Don't, hey, don't hit me like that, man. Fuck.
Ask him to raise his hand behind him, and there are 3 officers, 4 holding him down on his hand. I mean,
I being arrested for? What am I being arrested for? No, do not move. Fuck. What am I being arrested for? What am I being arrested for?
See, I'm trying to stop it and show his bloody face, but it's kind of hard to do.
No, do not move. What am I being arrested for? Why? Why do you hate me?
I'm not going to play this right now, but there was a citizen in the parking lot filming this on her cell phone, and she said, and Canada went up to her and said, "Well, this is what we do every day," kind of thing. Is that what it was? Something like that? Yeah. I mean, just a day's work. That's unfortunate that I don't think that's true, by the way. This is the more.
I'm good.
Some of this there's no sound
Just let it play.
right here. So here's Cody armed with a bottle of Mountain Dew. Okay, got a bottle of Mountain Dew. And a bag of groceries. Hands in the air. I think it's just Kinnaman's body cam. So you kind of got him from behind, cold cocked him basically. And they started tasing. Totally unjustified, no reason.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
Bring your hands out. Get your hands out.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Fuck up.
Get there, 77, not it.
What you want to do? I'm good. Hey.
Get your hands out.
Hey.
Get your hands out.
Stop it.
Get your hands out, or I'm gonna teach you.
Stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
Get your hands out.
Stop. 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 Okay. I'm good.
Now, that's the result. That bloody face is a result of excessive force by a police officer. Totally unnecessary, uncalled for, illegal, unconstitutional. And that's why we're here. Illegal and unconstitutional in the extreme. No basis at all why a citizen who's waiting for his girlfriend has to endure that kind of a beating and end up like that.
Hey, stop, please. Hey, stop, please. Stop, please. Stop, I'll stop.
I can't get it to with your hand.
Stop. I'll fucking walk, dude.
Turn.
No, I will.
Where do you want him?
Don't tase me no more, dude.
Hey, bring your hand behind you. Bring your hand behind you. We'll stop tasing you.
Hey, don't hit me like that, man. Fuck. What am I being arrested for? What am I being arrested for? No.
Do not move. Stay there.
What am I being arrested for? Fuck, you're that fucking. God, man. You guys hate me or something?
Just relax.
Why?
Stay there.
Why do you hate me? Why do you hate me? Look at my fucking face, dude.
You're not complying. That's why
Bullshit.
this is happening. I gave you
Not
You
complying.
got to run it back.
That's another real problem here with some of these officers. I
Look at my
mean,
fucking face.
this flat out lie on some of these videos I've seen. It's a flat out lie, not complying.
problem is when we tell you to get down on the ground.
Okay.
Get down on the
I
ground.
did.
You didn't.
Does anybody have any questions for me before we have Cody talk?
I was going to ask,
Haley.
just in looking at this, do you feel that there were certain points where the audio or the video was obscured on purpose?
Oh, yeah. Well, we see this all the time. And this may be one of them. I see this so often. The officer will turn off the audio, so you can't, and they claim when they do that they're trying to do investigative work or something like that. They make up an excuse like that, which is nonsense. And I'm going to hire a lip reader to see if they can read those lips, because I think they're readable, But that happens, excuse me, and I think it happened here too. I'm not going to play the whole thing because I don't want you to be here for 2 hours, but you'll go back to the station, you can watch that, or have one of your assistants watch it, and you'll see that some of this gets turned off, But before it gets turned off, one of the officers asked the other, "Do you think this was intentional?" It's in the complaint, by the way. We quoted that. I feel sad because make a couple of it. I'm a Trump guy. I'm a very conservative Republican. I'm a pro-police guy, but I don't like bullies, and that's why I do civil rights work. This is a horrible violation of his civil rights. He had done nothing to deserve that. Even if he was prowling cars, which he wasn't, you can't use excessive force on citizens. You can't. And unless people stand up to it, like Cody's willing to do, and go public with it, unless there are attorneys that take these cases, it goes on. And, this story is going to go out in the news tonight. Hopefully, it has an impact on officers. They don't need to use force. There was no need to use force. Cody would have put his hands behind his back and got handcuffed. They had asked him. Okay, you saw him on the ground, hands up or out, like this. No need to tackle him from behind. It was an egregious violation of his civil rights, his right to be free from excessive force under the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Okay? So, with that introduction, I'm going to move this stuff over here. And we've been impressed by Cody. And I'll tell you this, he's had some problems in his life. He's had some drug problems. He's overcome them. He's gotten clean. He's working right now, full-time. He has 3 children. One of them is in the U.S. Navy. Okay? Right now, training for submarines. He's a good man. He didn't deserve this. And I'll let you ask him questions, unless you have something for me. Do you have any more for me?
No, Cody, what's your reaction when you see that video?
Makes me shake. Gets me scared, nervous, upset. And sad, too. That's the way that they are going to treat people that did not commit a crime. And I know that my record looks bad, and as you watch the videos, you can see that they did find drugs on me, which still wouldn't justify them to beat me, punch me in the face. They stomp my hands. Like I put it on a screen recorder and you can slow it down and see them stomp my hands. My kids are scared to drive through American Fork City.
So, you admit you've had drug problems in the past.
Absolutely.
You had drugs with you that day.
Yes.
But in that video, it looks like you were on the ground and you had your hands in the air. And then talk me through it. What happened?
I could feel Officer Cannon coming. I could hear his equipment on him jiggling, and I could feel something coming, and I don't know if you've ever been tackled without pads or anything. I got hit in the spine by his knee. It like knocked the wind out of me instantly, and all I could think of was to tell him, like, stop, don't, and try and protect my face, because he went to instantly punching me in the head and face and trying to defend myself, but I was being tased at the same time, so you're kind of locking up at the same time that you're trying to defend yourself. You can't move your arms. You can't respond to what they're telling you to do when you're being tased like that and punched in the face and head at the same time. I would say that he probably punched me 30 times.
When you're tased, by the way, you lose muscle control for 30 seconds. All muscle control. You can't do anything. And so to tase somebody and say, put your hands behind your back is a non sequitur. Go ahead.
Cody, I may have missed this from the beginning, but just kind of take us back. Why were they arresting you there? What was the situation? And tell me about your compliance and what you were trying to do there.
So I had no idea up until about 9 to 10 minutes in, what they were there for. They surrounded me, were pointing tasers at me. I was scared right off the bat because they swarmed me with police cars. But they had said that somebody was trying to break into cars. My mother had dropped me off there at the Target parking lot, and I had some duffel bags and a couple garbage bags with my belongings in them, and I set them on top of Tanya's car and tried to open the door, and which I am on the insurance. Like, if the police would have done some investigation on the car, they could see that I could get into my own car, something that I'm able to drive. So I guess that's why they were there, maybe for that, or maybe somebody else was breaking into cars in the parking lot. But I had no idea, what they were there until I was beaten and bloody, what they were there for. I was upset because I was already going through a rough time in life, and this was just one more thing to add on top of it.
So you say you were innocently just walking in the parking lot when suddenly they surrounded you?
Yes, they did surround me. I went into Target to try and find Tanya. I couldn't find her in there, and so I went to the dollar store.
And you bought a few things.
And I bought a few things from the dollar store to eat while I couldn't. And my phone was packed inside of my stuff, and I didn't have my phone on me, so I couldn't call her to find her. So I was just going to wait for her to come out and eat some snacks.
But you had no idea. I mean, you were just standing there when they surrounded you, or?
Yes. So I was actually just walking through the parking lot from the dollar store back towards the car.
And tell me about, you clearly, I mean, the video shows too, I mean, you're kneeling down there. Tell me about that. What were you doing you felt like in compliance there?
I've been arrested in the past. I know what happens if you don't comply. So I did exactly what they were asking, and I was trying to get them to tell me what I'd done wrong, and I had my hands out. They asked me to put my hands out. It's not later till in the video that he said, "Oh, we told you to get down," and I, as soon as they told me, it was instantly he came charging at me, and so I just done as they said.
This was a little under 2 years ago now. What has the time since been like? Especially, I can imagine that not only recovering from that, but now having to face a legal fight is difficult for you. So what has the 2 years been like since all of this has happened?
My life has gotten better since then, other than I continue to have ringing in my ears. My hands are sore during the winter from them stomping my hands. I still totally avoid that area, and my kids won't let me drive through the city with them in the car. They're too nervous to drive through the city. As far as my life has gotten better, but it's hard to concentrate. I've lost short-term memory since then. Stuff that I've known my whole life, sometimes it'll take me 5 hours to remember somebody's phone number that I know by heart. So there's definitely been some struggles, but as far as my life goes, my life is getting better for sure.
Now you have the ringing in the ears all the time.
Constantly ringing in my ears. It changes pitches and tones.
What justice are you seeking here? What do you want?
I mean, honestly, it would be great if they would give the police the right training, how to deal with people and talk to people respectfully and calmly. And that would be the ultimate justice in my eyes.
I mean, do you want to see these officers lose their jobs? Do you want to see some punishment here, or what do you want to see?
I mean, if I was to do that to them, or if I was to go on a construction site and attack one of the homeowners or something like that, I would go to jail. I don't see why. I mean, it's in the video. I said that they said you're going to jail for attacking us, and I was like, no, you're going to go to jail for attacking me, but which is probably not true. It's probably not going to happen. But that's what on the other side of the fence, that's what would happen to me. So I just don't see why it would not happen to them too as well.
Do you know if this was reviewed by the Utah County Attorney's Office and they found that the officers were justified?
I have no idea.
Or do you know that, Bob?
You know,
This
I
was
don't
reviewed,
know.
or it was like, did you file a complaint, not civilly, but just through the police office?
No, I haven't. I've never filed a complaint through the police
Or
station.
you've never gone to anybody to say this is wrong?
I just came to Bob.
We have been in touch. We sent a notice of claim to the American Fork Police Department, and one of their attorneys sent back a letter denying the claim, which is unusual. Christina, would you mind just telling them what the interaction has been with American Fork? Because they haven't come forward and said, hey, we'll be honorable and take care of this.
Yeah, it's been kind of difficult. They don't view this situation, I guess, very seriously. And I asked them if they viewed the video.
I'm sorry, you asked who?
Come up here and sit on that.
attorney, the American Fork attorney. I think it's the city
There you
attorney,
go.
maybe not the city. I don't know who he represents. It's whoever we sent the notice to. And it just doesn't seem very high on their radar. They're not too concerned about it. They think that there are justifiable reasons behind this attack. And they kind of, it's just not very important to them. So,
You know, is Officer Cannon still with the American Fork Police Department?
as far as we know, all the officers are still with the department.
And had you had any prior interaction with any of these officers beforehand? Did they know who you were from any prior incident?
I believe I had met the sergeant before, but I don't think I've ever been arrested by him. But I've met him before, yes.
And Bob, you haven't had a chance to depose any officers then, right?
No, this has just been filed, actually yesterday.
Are you put a number on this lawsuit as far as how much?
You know, I don't like to put numbers in because it's hard to know, what all the facts are going to show. And so I don't put numbers in. I don't want to sensationalize it. We're looking for financial compensation that's fair. I trust juries to do that. And so this may go to a jury someday, and some attorneys put in millions of dollars and some don't put anything in. I don't think it's right to put anything in. I think experienced lawyers usually don't do that. And so we don't put an amount in, and we trust a jury to look at the facts here and make a fair decision. Cody will always be carrying the consequences of this violation of his civil rights with him. If he's had ringing, I do a lot of brain injury cases, as you probably know, and he's got significant concussion syndrome symptoms 2 years after the event. That means it's likely permanent. My guess is he'll have the ringing in the ears the rest of his life. He's got memory problems 2 years later. Probably going to have memory problems the rest of his life. The major damage here is psychological. He is wounded by what happened psychologically. He's damaged. His faith is shaken in the police officers, and he's permanently damaged by the emotional scarring that occurred that day. And he still suffers from that, as you can see.
Cody, can you talk about, just to confirm, because I feel like people may point to, the drug charges that came from this as, well, this is why this happened. But the order of events, they didn't know you were in possession of anything when this occurred.
Yeah, I'm willing to admit to the drugs. That's known. I mean, it's on the cameras. But if they would have done their job correctly, they could have seen that, and they could have taken me to jail for the drugs. And once they found the drugs and done their job the correct way and not attacked me. So, like, if somebody wants to judge me for that, that's fine. I mean, I've been dealing with addiction since I was younger, and I'm working through it, and I've taken the correct steps to do the things that I need to do as far as going to treatment, and I still see an individual therapist for this stuff now, which it's just what I have to do to deal with it so that I do not go back to that old way of life.
And they didn't even know you had anything at that point, right? They just
Yeah.
thought you were looking at cars and stuff.
Yeah, and the only car that I had looked at was Tanya's, and so I hadn't done a crime at that point. I mean, other than I did have drugs in my pocket, which was unknown to anybody but myself.
And let me just make one point on this, Tanya. You're very correct. You can't justify excessive force by something that happens afterward. You judge the use of force and the amount of force used at the time it's used. Okay, they could find a nuclear bomb on him, you know, and that wouldn't justify the force that was used beforehand. He had a small amount of drugs. He knows that was wrong, but you can't take that fact that they discovered later and justify this savage beating that he underwent and tasing. And the law is very clear on that.
So, Cody, when did you decide to take civil action against the police department? When was the first time you saw this video? I mean, as you said, over the past 2 years, you've kind of turned your life around. You've gone through rehab. You're clean now. But was this something always in the back of your mind? You thought, I was wrong, what they did to me?
Immediately from the attack, and you can watch in the videos, I was telling them that I want to get the videos immediately because I knew that I hadn't done anything wrong. I did have to take some time to go through treatment and all that stuff, the stuff I needed to do to get my head back on my shoulders.
But you knew from the moment that you got tackled, this wasn't right.
Oh, immediately, yeah, I knew it wasn't right.
Let me ask a follow-up on that, because you mentioned that part, and right after, the officer kind of says, oh, we've got all the video, kind of saying, hey, this video is going to support us. What's your response to that? And obviously, with the lack of communication, it seems like, from the American Force Police Department, what's your reaction to that?
Frustrated, but I guess they're just trying to defend themselves because they know they're wrong, which is like usually the reaction from a child or somebody that when they tell a lie when they've done something wrong, you know. So I don't think anybody that's seen the video knows that I didn't do anything wrong, that I was doing as what they were asking me to do. I might have been scared, but I wasn't trying to attack them.
And what's it like knowing that the police department really hasn't taken any action against these officers, knowing that, from what we know, they're still officers and they're still, you know, conducting searches and things like that?
It makes me worry who else they're going to hurt or harm. I mean, if they would have hit somebody else in the neck just by that many punches, they could have killed them. Or, you know, it's just worrisome what else they're going to do to somebody else.
Off of that, I mean, obviously, you do have lasting injuries, and not to downplay that, but thankfully, you didn't lose, you know, the ability to walk or something. Do you think it could have been worse, what happened to you?
Oh, it definitely could have been worse. They could have killed me just by punches. You never know how serious or how hard or where you hit somebody, what you can do to that person. So I'm grateful that I'm still alive and breathing so that I can be there for my family and friends.
I know you spoke about the ringing in your ears, but does this say, did you have a couple of broken fingers?
Yeah, and you can also see in the video like where my hands were bloodied and damaged. They were broken. They had took me to the hospital after that, and I don't know if it was because the start of COVID, but they, like, my face was covered in blood. They made me wash my face, and they wouldn't do any X-rays or anything like that on me. I actually asked the hospital to do X-rays on my head and my hands, but they denied it and took me to jail, and I had to bail out of jail.
And then were you had to go to the hospital yourself?
Well, I actually got myself into treatment because I was, I mean, obviously the struggles that I was going through at that point in my life was the drug addiction, and I wasn't able to work correctly, live correctly. So that was my number one priority at that time. I can just imagine if I would have went to the hospital, they would end up giving me more drugs and pills and things, and would have probably made things worse.
And were you living in American Fork at the time?
My girlfriend lived in American Fork. I recently lived in that city.
And where are you living now?
West Jordan.
Just for some background facts, did you spend some time in jail for this then?
Yeah, and I believe it was 4 or 5 days, maybe up to
really?
7 days
So
before.
you've already paid your price for this crime, I guess, as far as having drugs on you and that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, those charges were actually thrown out for illegal search and seizure.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So there was already a problem with this. There was already somebody that looked at this and said, hey, they did it wrong.
Yeah.
And, I mean, obviously they didn't look at the other side of this, which they should have, but so there was already something that they have basically proven that there was a wrongdoing here by officers.
Yeah. And immediately from the videos, that's when my attorney there had given me Bob's information, because they said that they couldn't handle something like that. So.
Now,
Yeah,
weren't there other
if they, just one quick question, along with what Dan said, if you use an illegal procedure, if you, for example, enter someone's apartment without a warrant, or their house without a warrant, and find something, it's called the fruit of the poisonous tree. Well, you can't use it to prosecute them. Same thing here. Now, we didn't handle all that. He had a criminal defense attorney, but if they illegally arrest him, which they did, you can't use the drugs. Shouldn't be able to use the drugs. Now, pardon me. He had other criminal problems, and he can tell you about them. But that one is one that should have been dismissed, and I think it was.
So I guess so. Then just for clarify, you had several simultaneous cases going on, correct? And so was it part
Yes.
of the plea deal? I mean, on the record, did it say illegal search and seizure, we're throwing this charge out, or was it kind of just understood that you'll plead guilty to this case and this one will disappear?
I believe I was told that these cases will just be thrown out, and like I had like a trespassing charge that was actually from my family's house because of my drug use. I wasn't allowed to be there, so.
As part of a global resolution plea deal, that case was dismissed. I mean,
Yes, it was dismissed.
Correct, but, I mean, the judge didn't say illegal search, you dismiss it, did they, or didn't they?
I believe it was my attorney and the prosecuting attorney that came up with that, and obviously the judge ordered that to happen. Yeah, and they were dropped before I had multiple cases going on at the same time, and so that got dropped actually before I finished out my other court cases.
Was that interference with an arresting officer also thrown out along with the 2 drug charges, or did that one stay?
Yes, it did get thrown out. I believe they originally charged me with assault on an officer too.
What did they end up finding on you then? What drugs?
I don't know exactly how much, but there was meth, and I had a syringe on me. Yeah.
Cody, at any time prior to this, with all of the things that had happened to you, was there any prior interactions with these officers that were violent in any capacity with you? I mean, that would don't strike me.
Honestly, there was where I was not violent with them. I don't remember, but I had been tased by the American Fork City Police Department before. They actually had tased me. That time with 7 different taser guns. I had I don't know if I overdosed inside of Cole's department store, but I was sleeping in the store and woke up to being tased and then went back out again. Prior to that, this I believe it was in 2013, or I could be totally wrong on that year, but none of these officers were involved. It was many years. I believe they go through, the officers change ranks and move on to different departments and stuff like that in that many years.
So you don't know if it was one of these same officers?
I couldn't even tell you if it was at this point, but I don't remember any of them being involved with that.
Cody, how old are you?
I'm 38.
38, and how long has your life of crime been, basically, would you say?
13 or 14 is probably when I started.
13 or 14 years old?
Yeah.
And so you've been in and out of jail, you've been everything from drugs to robbery and other things like that?
Oh, I've never robbed people, but when I was younger, I had stolen things and taken things from people and
Okay.
used drugs.
And do you consider yourself clean now, or what?
Oh yes, I'm 100% clean now. I would pass a UA right now if you had one. I have a lot of great people that are supporting me and that have helped me make it through this too.
Well, KSL reporters carry a UA. You want to do a quick one?
Yeah.
Can I ask?
Dan takes 2 a day.
Can I ask? Are you proud of that? Are you proud of?
Oh, absolutely. I know that I'm not myself when I'm on drugs, and I feel so much better. And I have the opportunity to work in treatment now too, and help other people. So.
Oh, is that what your full-time job is?
Yes.
That's great.
Can you tell us a little more about that? That's pretty incredible to turn around and now to be able to help other people.
Yeah. So I've been helping do marketing and admissions to get people into treatment, and so I'm able to relate to the people that are calling in, to the people that, to me, to get help. So it kind of helps to have that person that's been in the spot. It's kind of scary to make that change, and if somebody's gone through it and went through the programs and done all the steps and it's actually working, there's a light of hope.
So it seems like you're getting to a much better place in your life. What would it mean for you to have this case resolved, being clean, working to help get other people clean? Like, what do you want the future to look like after this?
Honestly, I want to continue to help people and just spend the time with my family and not have any worries that this is going to continue on or happen again. Maybe see some sort of different training for these officers to happen would be amazing, so that they don't do it to anybody else and continue to hurt people. I mean, it's horrible to beat somebody, and nobody deserves to be beat up. So I see myself just continuing to help people and spend time with my family.
Do you have a couple kids, or what do you?
Yes, I do. So I have 3 kids, one 19, 17, and 16. One's in the Navy, and obviously 2 are still in school. And my middle child, Destiny, is going to graduate this year, and then I also have 3 other stepkids too as well.
Any other questions, comments?
Obviously, you'll keep us up to date on what happens next. Please.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to put that in my diary.
Yeah.
Sure that, yeah. No, we hope that I'd like to see these cases get resolved rather than go to court. I've tried a lot of jury cases in my time. We're perfectly capable of trying this case. I'd like to see things settle if possible, if they can be done honorably, and reasonably for all parties. I would hope American Fork would come forward now. They haven't treated this very seriously. I don't think they're taking it seriously. They haven't so far. And so we'll see what happens. I'd love to take the deposition of Officer Cannon and find out what he was thinking. Tackle a guy from behind that's on his knees with his hands up. I'd like to know the justification for that outrageous act, and I can't think of a legitimate justification, but I'm open-minded. Maybe he'll give me one, but I don't think so. Anyway, we are honored to do civil rights work. We believe in it. I'm honored to represent someone like Cody, who's turning his life around and who has been abused and has gotten past it. He's not vindictive. He's not mean-spirited about it. But he would like to see some justice here. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Again, there's a complaint over here, or there's a flash drive with the videos on it if you want one. And if any more questions come to mind, why, you've all got my phone number, call me.
Thank you. Good luck. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Matt, good to see you.
Sorry, real quick, just want to kind of clarify. What were you doing in the parking lot in the first place?
So, okay.
Were you there with a friend?
So I had been working for a guy remodeling basements, and I had moved in. So when I was on drugs, I had lost my place to live. I moved in with the guy I was working with. We had an agreement for him to pay me $1,000 a week,